Hello class, it's Marcella again, and today we're going to be talking about stand development. Stand development is this process of how stands change with time, are influenced by other aspects. So how do stands develop after a major disturbance? And we can classify them in two kind of main categories: relay versus initial floristics. Does anyone remember what the difference between these two types? Does anyone remember the difference between relay and initial floristics? Okay, let's see if you got it right. So relay floristics is this first top graph, this first figure up here. And relay floristics, how I like to remember it, is if you ran track or if you've seen track, relay floristics is just like a relay, so someone passing off the baton to another. So we can think of it as one or a few species established after a disturbance, alter the environment, and allow still other species to invade and eventually dominate. So in this example, we have the disturbance, and we have the first annual herbs established, then we have perennial herbs, shrubs, and etc., etc. So each of these species is modifying the environment to allow the establishment of another species. So it's this relay event, so they're passing off the baton. Whereas initial floristics is a little different. So initial floristics is this bottom figure here. And this is where most plants existing in a stand invade shortly after a disturbance rather than throughout the life of the stand. Species which dominate later have been present in the stand since soon after this disturbance. So the idea is that all the seed, all this material, all the advanced regeneration, whatever, it's all been present since right after the disturbance. But who dominates varies based on the time after the disturbance. So again, first we have the annual herb stage. However, the plants, the seeds, whatever, of the most tolerant trees are there at that same beginning point. While how stands develop after a major disturbance can sometimes be classified based on these two categories, relay versus initial. Oftentimes, it's a combination, so it's not as simple as putting them into categories, but often it's multiple mechanisms happening within a stand. But these are good terms to know and good terms to kind of think about. So both of these development patterns occur in succession. So like I was saying, often it's not one or the other happening, but some level of each. So what exactly is succession? So succession is the gradual supplanting of one community of plants by another. So succession can be thought as either primary succession or secondary succession. So primary succession is the ecological succession that occurs following an opening of uninhabited, barren habitat, or that occurs on an environment that is devoid of vegetation and usually lacking topsoil. So primary succession is kind of starting from stage one, starting from almost nothing. So that uninhibited, barren habitat. So starting with moss, starting with these plants, these organisms that even begin to produce soil. So this is really stage one primary succession. Whereas secondary succession is the ecological succession that occurs on a pre-existing soil after the primary succession has been disturbed or destroyed due to a disturbance that reduced the population of initial inhabitants. So we're mostly in silviculture talking about the secondary succession. So we have soil, we've had pre-existing plants, there's been some kind of community on it, there's some kind of disturbance, whether it's natural or man-made, and then we can see this transition of plants that occurs after that, how the community changed, how the stands developed, how all these processes occur with time. And so we're generally talking in silviculture, talking about secondary succession. So disturbance, again, an example of this, stand replacing. So we've had trees on this place before. There was existing vegetation. There is existing topsoil. So this is an example of secondary succession. So whether this disturbance is man-made or natural, we're talking about secondary succession. So how do forests develop? How does a stand develop? And we can talk about these in different stages of stand development. And these different stages have been developed by Oliver and Larson. So they group them into 4 different stages. So stand initiation, stem exclusion, understory reinitiation, and this old multi-age community. So this old, some people call it old growth, but it's often this old multi-age community. So this is a very good slide to look at, to remember. You will be asked to name these different stages of stand development, so mark it, take note, whatever. This will be on an exam or a quiz. So first stage, stand initiation. And stand initiation happens after a disturbance. So after a disturbance, you have this change in, you have this opening and possibly this change in growing space. And in a stand replacing disturbance, you have this huge kind of available area, this soil that's available. And you're hoping, you want new individuals and species to establish on this. And this is what stand initiation is. So it's the new individuals and species appearing on the site, and this often occurs for several years. So we see stand initiation, we see it's generally species in that seedling and sapling stage. They're just getting to the site, they're regenerating, they're putting on a little bit of growth. Everyone's kind of at the same stage. Still available growing space. So we haven't reached crown closure yet. So there's still available growing space. The stem exclusion stage happens after several years. And really the key with stem exclusion is new individuals do not appear. So there's no new individuals entering the site. And when I'm talking about individuals, I'm generally talking about your overstory trees, so your woody vegetation. So no new individuals are appearing, and some of the existing ones die. So what we're seeing here is a pretty even age stand. So seed came in, individuals started regenerating, these woody plants. So again, I'm talking about trees. So seed, saplings to seedlings, and all of a sudden they've reached crown closure and there's no more growing space. So there's no new individuals appearing. And some of the existing ones start to die. So some of these suppressed individuals start to die. So the surviving ones grow larger and express differences in heights and diameter. So if all these trees in this example are the same species, we see that some of these are maybe on better microsites, maybe they got there first, maybe they have better genetics. There's a whole host of reasons why these species may be growing larger and may be becoming dominant. So they're able to express differences in height and diameter. And this can be seen with when all the species are the same, or we can start to see this, maybe there is multiple species that entered this land. So one species that was super shade intolerant, something like larch or something like larch or something like aspen. They might be the ones that really got to the site. They started growing, they grew high, and they're the dominant species. But say it was a mixed species stand. So say it was larch and there was some black spruce there. And they both started at the same time. So they both were in stand initiation at the same time. So the seed was there, they're growing, they're becoming seedlings and saplings together. Well, the larch is going to grow faster than the black spruce, but they're still the same age. And so larch may dominate first and then black spruce. But we see we're not getting new individuals. Even if there's two species, if they started at the same point, they can still be in the stem exclusion stage. So that transition from stem exclusion to understory reinitiation happens when later forest floor herbs, shrubs, and advanced regeneration, so those other tree species, start to appear again and survive in the understory. So understory reinitiation starts when new individuals start to appear. And then this final stage is this old growth or multi-age community. And this happens much later. And one definition is once all the trees that were there and occurred during that stem initiation stage, you can't reach old growth status. You can't reach this multi-age status until all those trees from that original cohort died. So this old growth, and we'll talk about definitions in the next slide. Much later, trees die in an irregular fashion, and some other trees began growing into the overstory. So you have this establishment of multiple cohorts of an uneven age structure. So Oliver and Larson is just one model, and that's this one. So Oliver and Larson, 1990. We have other models, which includes something like Franklin et al. And you can see they classify these different stages of stand development. They have a lot more classification. So instead of 4 classifications, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So they break up these classifications a lot more, especially this old growth stage. So there's multiple ways we can talk about stand development. Oliver and Larson is one of those. So what's happening in these stages of stand development? We see changes in the forest floor. We see changes in the soil environment. We see changes in temperature. And we see shifts in available growing space. So we go from stand initiation to where there's open available growing space to stem exclusion, where all the available growing space is being used to, again, this opening up of growing space in stem reinitiation. And then old growth, again, this changing growing space as trees die and reestablish. So there's a lot going on as we move from one stage to another. So that's kind of this introduction to stages of stand development. We're going to focus and look at these different stages and how silviculture can be used to either keep stands in a stage for longer or to move stands quickly to another stage. So this ends this lecture. If you have any questions, remember to bring them to class. Thanks.